Hey, welcome. I'm Madeline Craig. I'm an educator and a life coach for families struggling with a loved one's drug or alcohol abuse. And this is another episode of my video blog, which I call Hope for Families TV. I call this Hope for Families TV because I intend for all of my work to offer you hope in what I know can be a very dark situation. And this is the second episode in a series I'm calling Why I Do What I Do. So let's dive right into it. Have you ever had someone tell you that you can't control your loved one's use and that you just need to let go and detach? And thought there has got to be something that I can do to help address this problem? If you answered yes, I'm really glad you're watching this episode because that frustration informs the second reason why I do what I do. So reason number 2 is that I do what I do because the "you can't control it" slogan that came out of 12-step family recovery and is now pretty much a cultural mantra is really disempowering to families if it's left to stand on its own. Now, before I dive into that, let me start with some disclosure though. I've spent over 20 years in 12-step recovery for families. That is one of my primary sources of what I call effective support, which is essential for families to heal from the damage of a loved one's substance use. And as I mentioned in the last video, I might not even be here without that kind of effective support. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for 12-step recovery. In fact, 12-step recovery groups are the first place that I learned what love really looked like, and that's huge. But 12-step programs are by no means perfect. For some, the spiritual nature of the program and the repeated use of the word God, even if it means God as you understand God, is more than they can bear. It's just a bridge too far. This is especially true for anyone who has suffered from religious abuse. Also, if you're suffering from unhealed trauma, the spiritual solutions are much less accessible because spirituality requires a significant level of presence. And people with unhealed trauma are sometimes too dissociated to be able to fully access the benefits of spiritual practices. For many of my years in 12-step family recovery, I was one of those people. And even though I did make some really important progress in the program, I also spent years and years wondering why people were finding so much more healing than I was, even though I was working the steps. I was, in fact, in denial about the trauma that I had experienced and had no idea that that was what was getting in the way. Because of this, as much as I respect 12-step programs and am forever grateful for the life-changing support they gave me, I also know that they are not always a complete solution or even just not a good fit for everyone. And we do need more support options for family members. So back to the "you can't control it" slogan. One of the other challenges with 12-step family recovery is the often repeated phrase that you can't control the use. Now, I am not saying that it's untrue. It's not. If your loved one insists on continuing to use, there is very little you can do except take care of yourself and set whatever boundaries you can around the destructive behavior. The problem with the "you can't control it" phrase is that it's not the whole truth. The phrase "you can't control it" ignores the social reality that we all have influence on each other. You are influencing the problem no matter what you do. And in studies in cognitive behavioral science, studies in cognitive behavioral science show that there are specific ways in which family members can positively influence the problem. And ignoring this reality and the data the field of cognitive behavioral science has compiled behind it disempowers families unnecessarily. Now, in the case where your loved one insists on continuing to use, the "you can't control it" slogan can be really helpful in clarifying your priorities and ensuring that your focus remains on your own well-being. And that is a good thing. But one of the challenges with 12-step family recovery is that it was born from families where the person using substances was a very low bottom case. Today we know that substance use disorders occur on a spectrum. And we know that the higher on the spectrum the substance use disorder is, the harder it becomes to treat. And it may be harder to have an impact in those cases, but it's still not impossible depending on whether or not you can still take care of yourself in the face of the use while you're trying to do that. But not every case is a super low bottom case. Furthermore, the number one question families have is, what can I do? They're desperate to do anything that might shift the needle. And while there are no guarantees, cognitive behavioral science has shown that there are things that families can do that could shift that needle. Which means that to simply tell families that they can't control the use and leave out the fact that they do have influence, let alone showing them how to use it to positive effect, just disempowers families totally unnecessarily. There is a middle ground. So the second reason I do the work that I do is to shift that dynamic, to let families know they do have influence, and to give them the tools that they need so they know how to use it. In fact, it's the first workshop I offer because I know families are frankly desperate to know, what can I do? If by chance you'd like to learn more about that, feel free to check out my 5 Ways Workshop series. You can find a link below this video or in my bio on my socials. So that is reason number 2 why I do what I do. I hope this episode has been helpful. Feel free to drop a comment or to send me an email at questions@madelincraig.com. Until then, I'll see you in the next episode of Hope for Families TV. Thanks for watching.